Hey guys, welcome to the next in-depth video on the DCS World F-14. In this video, we will finally be doing a cold startup of the jet, but with a little twist. Through Jester AI, we've included a new feature called Assisted Startup, where Jester will help you run through the startup checklist. We've gone one step further in this video and set up voice attack so that we can verbally acknowledge the checklist. For the F-14, we intend most Jester functionality to be directly bindable, so that you can use voice attack to talk to him. Alright, let's get started. Okay, first things first. I'm going to turn on our oxygen. Okay, let's start her up.
There's no external air and power.
Oh, right. My bad. Chief, turn on the ground power.
Copy. Ground power is now on.
Chief, connect ground air supply.
Copy. Ground air supply is now connected.
Okay, now let's start her up.
Wilco. ICS comm check. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Roger that. Check landing gear indication extended and transition light off.
Check.
Okay, next. Select LCS on master test switch and verify all lights illuminate.
For the master test switch, we're going to right-click it and then left-click it to turn it, and then right-click it again to push it in to start the test. The first test is to just ensure that all the lights illuminate throughout the cockpit. Everything looks good. Check.
Then select Fire DET EXT on master test selector and verify left and right fire, go lights illuminate.
For this test, we're just verifying that the fire extinguisher system is working. We need to verify the left and right fire lights in the front and the go light down by the master test switch. If the test is good, it will illuminate go, and if it's bad, it will illuminate no go. Check.
Select INST on master test selector and verify that engine, fuel, wing sweep, and alpha instruments are working.
On the fuel panel, you can note that we currently have 16,000 pounds of fuel, and when the test is run, it will show 2,000 if successful. And we'll check that our wing sweep changes to 45 degrees. Our AOA units will show 17. And our engine panel will no longer show as off. You can see our engine shows 2,000 total pounds of fuel. Our wing sweep is at 45 degrees. Our units of AOA are at 17. And our engine panel no longer shows as off. Check.
Okay, arm ejection seat.
Before we do this, we want to disengage the master test button by pulling it out via the right click button, and then we can go ahead and arm our ejection seat. Check.
Close the canopy.
Check.
Set gun rate. Sidewinder cool off, missile prep off, missile mode norm on ACM panel.
Check.
Make sure emergency storage jettison push button light is out.
Check.
Set air source to off.
Check.
Set hydraulic transfer pump to off.
Check.
Set emergency flight hydro to low and check for on flag and emergency flight low hydraulic pressure window.
So now we can check the low flag on the hydraulic pressure window. Looks good. Check.
Set emergency flight hydraulics to high and check for on flag and emergency flight high hydraulic pressure window.
And now we check for the high flag. Yep, looks good. Check.
Set emergency flight hydraulics to auto.
Check.
Engine crank switch to right, right throttle to idle at 20% RPM. Check that crank switch returns to off at around 50% RPM.
And when we reach 20% RPM, we can introduce fuel by taking the right throttle out of the idle cutoff detent. The next thing we're looking for is 50% RPM, and the engine crank switch should return to center. And there it returns to center. Check.
Check that right generator and right fuel pressure caution lights are off.
You can see here that the left gen and left fuel pressure lights are on. The right gen and right fuel pressure lights are off, and that means that we are good to go. Check.
Check engine instruments within normal parameters.
Here we're looking for RPM 62 to 78%. TIT should be about 500. And fuel flow is 950 to 1400. And those are all looking really good. Check.
Order plane captain to disconnect external power.
Chief, turn off the ground power. Now, we can't hear him because the canopy is shut, so we're just going to have to trust that he's doing his job properly. Check.
Engine crank switch to left. When combined hydraulic pressure reaches 3000 psi, switch engine crank switch back to off.
So here we're just making sure that the hydraulic transfer pump works and that there's bidirectional flow between the flight hydraulics and the combined hydraulics. So we'll wait for the combined hydraulics gauge to get to about 3000, and when it does, we'll go ahead and stop cranking the engine. Okay, we're at about 3000. And now we're just going to wait for a second and make sure that it holds. And looks like it's going to hold. Check.
Set hydraulic transfer pumps to normal.
And now we're making sure that the transfer pumps are also working. Everything should hold. And looks like we're good there. Check.
Set hydraulic transfer pump to off.
Check.
Set engine crank to left. Left throttle to idle at 20% RPM. Check that crank switch returns to off at around 50% RPM.
So again, just like the right, we're going to start our left engine. And we'll introduce fuel at 20%. Now before we move on, let's take a second to listen to that pure unadulterated sound of freedom once again. Check.
Check that left generator and left fuel pressure caution lights are off.
Check.
Check engine instruments within normal parameters.
Again, RPM looks good, TIT looks good, and fuel flow looks good. Check.
Order the plane captain to disconnect the external air.
Chief, disconnect ground air supply. If you weren't doing an assisted startup, now would be a good time to have Jester start doing an INS alignment. During an assisted startup, he does a fine alignment, which typically takes about 8 minutes. Check.
Cycle air source switch to left, right, then both engines and verify airflow in all positions.
Check.
Set hydraulic transfer pump to normal.
Check.
SAS switches to on.
Before we turn on our SAS system, I want to note that on our caution advisory panel, you can see the warning lights are on for the yaw, roll, and pitch stability control systems. So when we turn them on, we can go ahead and go back over to the panel and make sure that they've turned off to ensure that they are actually working. Check.
Cycle engine mode selectors and verify that each engine's secondary mode caution light illuminates.
This test ensures that the secondary mode or hydromechanical control modes work on both engines. Check.
Set UHF function selector to transmit, receive, plus guard, or both.
Check.
Set TACAN function selector to TR.
Check.
ARA 63 power switch to on.
Check.
Turn on all displays.
Just check that our displays came on. Everything looks good. Check.
Turn on radar altimeter.
Check.
Set trim to 0.
Typically here you would just check that your trim is actually working, so you would move it up, down, and then also left and right, and you'll see the needles go opposite from each other because the horizontal stabilizers are moving in their opposite directions to introduce roll in the direction that you are trimming to. So that looks good. Put those back to center, and then we'll come down to 0. Check.
Erect the standby attitude gyro.
Check.
Extend speed brake partially. Retract, then extend fully. Check for fluctuations in stabilizer to verify integrated trim operations.
So we can check that the speed brake is out with this indicator up here. When I deploy it, I'm going to deploy it and then put it back in. You can see that the trim moved. Now I'm going to deploy it all the way and the trim should move. And that looks good. We'll go ahead and put it back in. Check.
Extend and retract refuel probe.
Check.
Emergency wing sweep handle to full forward.
So we'll move the handle forward, and then we're going to push it in and hit our master reset, and then we're going to put our wings into auto. And this should bring the wings all the way forward. Every time that you move the handle, you're going to want to press the master reset button. Check.
Set external lights according to situation.
Situation calls for no lights. Check.
Verify flaps and slats operation and set to down.
So this one we're going to move our flaps to about 50%. And then we're going to visually check them and check that our indicators also show the same. Move down about 50. We'll look at our flaps, and our flaps have gone down. When we look over here, we can see that our slats are out on both wings. And now we'll go ahead and move this all the way down. You can see on the indicator that our flaps have moved all the way down, and our slats are completely out. Check.
flight controls wipeout.
Here we're going to move the stick around and the rudder. And we're going to check our flight controls over the shoulder to make sure that they are all moving. Everything looks good. Check.
Toggle DLC and verify stabilator shift with DLC input.
So here we're going to toggle the DLC. And you can see the spoilers came out, and if we look at our wings, the spoilers did come out. And if we give it some stabilator shift, we can see that they went down and up. Check.
Set anti-skid, spoiler brake switch to spoiler only.
There's our spoilers. Both wings look good. Check.
Test spoilers and throttles.
Now we need to make sure that our parking brake is on. We're going to go ahead and introduce a little bit of throttle and just ensure that our spoiler brakes go all the way down. And then we're also going to check our indicators here. Make sure the same thing happens. Check.
Set anti-skid spoiler brake switch to off.
Check.
Retract flaps and slats.
Just check our wings, make sure that everything looks good. The indicator shows well. Check.
Set maneuver flaps to down.
So we use the DLC to move our maneuvering flaps down. And if we look over our shoulder, we can see the slats went down a little bit. The maneuvering flaps are down, according to the indicator here. Check.
Set wing sweep to 50 degrees using manual mode.
Now we move our wings to 50 degrees. Check.
Retract maneuver flaps.
So you don't want to retract them fully, you want to crack them a bit. So we're going to move them up just slightly. And the reason we're going to do that is the next test we're going to go to bomb mode, and in bomb mode they should retract fully. Check.
Set wing sweep mode to bomb and verify maneuver flap retraction.
Now we go ahead and switch to bomb. And we check our maneuver flaps and they retracted, and we look at our wings and they are in bomb mode, and the maneuver flaps are retracted as well. Check.
Set emergency sweep handle to 68 degrees.
So now we're going to bring this, we're going to pop it up, we're going to bring it down to 68 degrees. We can check here and make sure it's at 68. And we're going to look over our shoulder and make sure that both wings also are at 68. Check.
Set emergency sweep handle to 68 degrees, then oversweep until HZ tail authorization caution light goes out and over flag appears in wing sweep indicator.
Okay, so now we're going to pull it all the way back. We're going to check our caution light. The oversweep one is out. And we're going to check here, and we're looking for the oversweep flag as well, and it is there. And if we look at our wings, they're in oversweep, and everything looks good. Check.
Set wing sweep mode to auto.
So moving this to auto, you will not get a verification. I've gone ahead and done it, and we're just going to have to trust that it worked. Check.
Press the master reset button.
And that's going to go ahead and reset our warning panel. Check.
Run radar altimeter bit test.
Check.
Check that displays are set as needed.
Check.
Run TAC and bit.
Check.
Run the ARA 63 bit.
This is our ILS bit test. So the first thing we want to do is set HUD to ILS, set VDI to ILS. We're going to go to landing mode, and we're going to go to AWL steer command, and then we're going to press and hold the bit test, and we should see a sweep on both the HUD and VDI. Go ahead and release. Come back over here and reset our controls. Check.
Set altimeter reference pressure and reset mode.
Our reference pressure is 29992, and that looks good. And we'll go ahead and reset. Press and hold. Check.
Compare compass heading with IMU heading on HUD, VDI, HSD, and BDHI.
So we're at about 8.5. And then go ahead and check the wet compass as well. And this sucker down here. Check.
Check flight instruments.
Now we're just running over the cockpit, make sure everything is where we expect it to be. Check.
Roger. We're ready to taxi.
Alright, so before you taxi, you're going to want to make sure to release the parking brake. And you're going to engage the nose wheel steering. You can check it up on the left light panel there. And then you can go ahead and taxi. Okay, so before we take the runway, we're going to want to unsweep our wings. To do this, we're going to bring our emergency hand all the way forward. Push it in. Shut it. Hit the master reset. And now you can see our wings are out of oversweep. And you're going to want to hit the auto. And that will bring them all the way forward. Check on our left and right side. Both wings are out. And now you are ready to take the runway. All right. That was long. But that is how you start the F-14 Tomcat from cold and dark the proper way. The DCS F-14 launches in early access very soon, so make sure you study up, and see you guys in the sky.